Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, and today we're going to be talking about DAOs. We're not going to be diving into exactly what a DAO is, but rather I'd like to take a look at the recent massive fallout from Wonderland and the cryptocurrency Time. Wonderland is the DAO. I will make a separate video covering what DAOs are and what are some great examples and stuff like that. But in this, I wanted to focus on all this craziness that has happened, talking about expectations for staking and why this DAO did so terribly and why DAOs like this are doing so terribly. It's pretty obvious once we actually look into it with the insane staking APY that they promise. But, it deserves to be sort of dissected and talked about and looked into, because I'm sure a lot of people are losing a lot of money right now. And a lot of people look at DAOs like this because it's a decentralized autonomous organization. I mean, first of all, that's a mouthful and sort of hard to understand. But secondly, people make it seem like there's no way that one person could come in and ruin the project, or that it could get hacked or whatever. Because it's decentralized, it's somehow above anything bad happening to it. And with that expectation, people have gone on to invest in insane projects that are just at face terrible and obviously scams. So I wanted to talk about this today and really break this down and sort of just share this as a public service announcement for people who are looking into DAOs or wondering what's this all about. There's a million amazing DAOs. Well, not a million. There's actually not that many, but there's more good DAOs than bad DAOs. And I'll link a list to them as well for you to check out. I will dive into all of that in the next one where I explain it, but this is very timely. So we're going to be looking at this big fallout today. But first, a quick word from my sponsor. A big thank you and shout out to my sponsor, Cake Wallet, which is an open source, non-custodial Bitcoin and Monero wallet that also has a built-in exchange. It's available on iOS and Android. So the thing that we're going to be mainly focused on for this is Wonderland, but we'll also talk about Olympus, the DAO, and By the Constitution DAO. So this is the most egregious, obviously, where Wonderland recently started to tank because they found out that the co-founder was tied to QuadrigaCX, the exchange in Canada, where the co-founder took all of the money and then supposedly died, and everyone lost everything. His co-founder, who is still alive and doing his thing, he went off and partnered with this project and with the people on this project and helped design Wonderland DAO. People are speculating that if he was involved in any way in what happened with QuadrigaCX, then naturally this was designed from the get-go to be a scam. And I mean, even if it wasn't, or he wasn't the one doing this, it's still basically a scam anyways. I mean, just looking at it at face value, regardless. Because I know people are going to watch this video and then they're going to say, oh, well, I'm mainly criticizing the staking expectations and what they're promising and stuff, when a lot of this fallout is really because of the founder who's involved in this. Yes and no. As I said, whether or not they built this from the ground up to be a scam, it's obviously a scam based on the APY. And, and same with Olympus DAO. And my rule of thumb has always been 15% or lower is a reasonable yield. And above that there's a reason why it's so high. You should always be skeptical as to why it's above that amount. You could sort of get around it with liquidity providing and farming and some things like that. But if you're just getting 40% yield on lending, or you're just getting 40% straight up from staking, I'd be very suspicious. While there are exceptions, I'd be very suspicious. The SEC calls these high yield investment programs HIPs. They're typically scams, and they promise returns of 30 or 40% or more. It's likely fraud. So this isn't new. This is pretty old. This is taking a page from the book of the older scammers and then just reinventing it for a crypto. So it's not like this is new at all. And I'm going to be doing a thing where I go and I review all the staking coins and talk about what I think is legit and what I think is unsustainable or sketchy, etc. Because it's not like all of these were malicious, right? You can build a bad project. You can build a project that is meant to fail. You can build something that is just simply unsustainable and you thought you were going to figure it out along the way or whatever. I'm not always going to assume malicious intent, but I am going to look at it for what it is. And this is a scam as it stands. 83,000% APY. The irony too is that people would argue that over time its APY should drastically go down, and then there shouldn't be as much of an issue. But the last time I checked, it was 63,000, and now it's 83,000. To put this into perspective for like a normal person who invests, if I put in $100, I can expect to end up with $83,411.04. That's the yield that they're offering. And while that's over the course of the year, if it's compounding, I'm sure it's way, way more than that as well. And this could go up or down or whatever. The point, though, is that if you ever see something with this kind of yield, it's not legit. Like, you should never think that that's going to be the reality, right? And same with Olympus DAO. I mean, while this is much more conservative comparatively, this is still insane. I mean, Titan by Iron Finance offered 206%, and that was a rug pull / scam. So, you know, I don't even invest in anything above 15%. I look at something like Anchor's UST, using Luna UST on Anchor, get 20% or 19% or whatever. I'm doing that with extreme caution and skepticism with like $20. I'm just testing it. I'm looking into it a bunch. I don't trust it at all. I don't see how people could come into these projects and think that, you know, 2,000% APY is reasonable. Or again, simply, is it sustainable? If we go back to Wonderland and look at time here, it topped out around 10,000 almost. And today it's $341, down almost 40% just today. But not like that's going to turn around, right? It's ever since it hit its peak, it's just been slowly declining. Again, which was expected because presumably it had a very low APY going up, or you know, it just wasn't super popular, and then they finally got everyone in, and then it started popping off, and then now it's declining, and people are still buying. Like, this is really sad to see right on the side here. Do I sell? I put in 60,000, and now I have 6,000. So he lost the majority of his funds. It's crazy. That's the reality right now, though. But the question is, too, like, why would you even get into this project? You see 83,000 APY, and you think that's going to just make you super rich for fun for no reason, and like anyone who gets in can just become super rich, and it's just this free thing, and the money is just coming out of nowhere. And the reality is that money is always coming from somewhere. Things have to be sustainable to not just completely tank like this, like Olympus. It went up to 1,300 and tanked down all the way down to $63. This is not new. This has been happening, right? High yield investment programs has been happening forever. The only real caveat here is that DAOs sort of give this impression that it's not going to be some sketchy corporation or centralized entity that's going to screw you over and do something. A DAO is, you know, it's decentralized. It's run by a bunch of people, so they can't be all malicious. I mean, it could be run by 10 people and they're all malicious, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. There's no guarantee that a DAO is going to be legit, or I mean, it could have been made from the get-go to be a scam. So even if there is, you know, other people coming in, they don't know what's going on. So, you know, just be very wary and don't fall for high staking APYs as a use case. I mean, this goes for anything, right? DeFi, all this stuff. You shouldn't be just investing in something based on the use case of being, I want to get yield, because that's not a real product or use case or anything, and you're not really investing anything aside from hoping that you're going to get more money. And that's kind of the trap that all of these have laid out for people, and they've all taken the bait. We're also going to briefly look at two other projects. The DAO was like the first DAO. And here on Coinopsy, you can see like a list of dead coins and stuff like that. This was a while ago. I mean, this was 2016. But it's good to just kind of get a refresher that even the very first DAO was a complete fail. And you can see all the stuff here that sort of summarizes the problems. It only lasted a year. They shut down all their social media. The website's down. No one actually knew who the founder was. You couldn't trade it. All this stuff. Huge problems. But again, I'm not saying that DAOs in general are bad. I'm saying that there's a wave right now of mainstream-ish DAOs that are getting a lot of media attention that are all really, really terrible. So it's important to just be mindful of all this kind of stuff. And the last one we're going to look at is Buy the Constitution DAO, which was all these people who said, we're going to band together and pool our money and try to buy the Constitution. And they led people to believe that the tokens they were getting for their donations would, or at least people believed that it would be some sort of governance token or do something, when in the reality, it was just like a donation, more or less. And you're basically just giving them the money. The aftermath is that, like, even if they're to refund everyone and try to get everyone's money back, you're going to lose the majority of your money just from like gas fees from like ETH and stuff like that. So pretty terrible project. Oh, and yeah, you can see all of the refunds are being wiped out by high fees. So not at all viable, and just a huge mess. And while I think, you know, trying to do something isn't a bad thing, but the reality is that DAOs are decentralized. So if a bunch of people can't make a good decision, or they all make a bad decision, et cetera, like, they could still fail just as easily as a normal company. They could still, like, this seems like not malicious, but still fail. The result is you still lost your money. That's always the key thing. It's not that something is always malicious, or it has to be a scam, or, you know, it has to be such and such and it has to fit in a category. It's the results. What is going to happen to you? What are the consequences? What are you going to end up with? Well, if you end up with losing all of your money, does it matter if it was a scam or not? Because the result is the same. So this whole thing is just to say, be very mindful of investing in DAOs or any cryptocurrency that is touting a ridiculous staking APY and doesn't have a good reason to back up why that is. I'm sure investors in these projects will have their own reasons, but like, the reality is that this is just a terrible project, and so is Olympus, and in a way, so is this. I mean, maybe it had good intentions, but this is the end result. This is the reality. Investing in things that have ridiculous expectations, high yield investment programs, HIPs, even the SEC says that's a terrible idea. And while most people don't like the SEC because they're just going around regulating everything and causing problems, the original use of the SEC was to protect you as the investor. And that is absolutely the case by telling you to avoid high yield investment programs. They're extremely risky. A lot of them are purposefully scams or fraud. And as the SEC has said, likely they are fraud if 30 to 40% or more, and if they're offering that out pretty regularly. But it could even be, you know, still yearly, because 30 to 40% is still insane. But let me know. Have you guys ever invested in anything like this? What are your thoughts on DAOs? Have you heard about any of this stuff yet with Time and Wonderland and all this craziness happening? Let me know your thoughts on all that. What are some good DAOs that you invest in or that you like? Because there's many really great DAOs out there, and I will be covering all that in the next video where we talk about really what is a DAO. It probably would have made sense to make that video first, but this is extremely timely, and I don't need anyone else losing money on these terrible projects. So I felt obligated to make this as soon as possible because it's fairly timely. Anyways, though, Let me know your thoughts on all of this. Thank you so much for watching to the end. And as always, do comment hashtag #1ham in the comments below. And that way I know that you watched the whole video, which I always do greatly appreciate. Anyways, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, signing off. Cheers.